Welcome back to Before and After, the podcast where we talk about movies, music, TV, shows, games, more, and all that awesome stuff. I'm Spence, and I find that whenever I'm talking about awesome stuff, I'm always joined by my awesome friend Vince. Vince, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic today.
Well, we had our first episode last week, and now we're moving on to episode 2. This is our first official after. If you look at our name, Before and After. Before, we were talking about our expectations looking at Ted Bundy on Netflix. Yes, the one with Zac Efron. But now we're going to be reviewing it. Me and Spencer both watched it last night, and we were just as creeped out, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I was in a weird mood after.
Yeah, you definitely needed to turn on something happy afterwards.
Exactly. And I have a girlfriend, and if you watch Ted Bundy, you know what he does with his girlfriend. Yeah. So I was like, maybe I should not talk to her for a day or so. I don't trust. This is weird. Regardless, it's Netflix picked up Ted Bundy for a second thing. First, they did the documentary. Now they did an actual film. Zac Efron plays Ted Bundy, and Lily Collins plays his girlfriend, Liz Kendall. Now, Ted Bundy, if you don't know much about him, Spencer, tell me a little about Ted Bundy.
Okay, so Ted Bundy was, I feel like this goes without saying, he was a serial killer. His crimes spanned between February 1st, 1974 to February 9th, 1978. So, and his crimes are all, honestly, they were everywhere. He was all over the place. He was in Florida, he was in Washington, he was in Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Utah. I mentioned Washington, California. He was all over the place. And he was known for brutally assaulting women, and I want to say this in the nicest way possible, as weird as that sounds. Horrible things.
Not a good boyfriend.
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't swipe right. He confessed to over 30 murders, but some people put the death count as a lot higher than that, which is bone chilling.
And which we'll get into, but I thought the weird part was most serial killers, you find out in the end. You get everything that happens, but he got arrested along the way.
Yeah, it was just all sporadic.
And he was always in and out of jail.
Yeah, all the time. It's an odd thing to see that, and we're just like, hey, why did this stop all of a sudden? And then they're just like, nah, it must be nothing. And then they're just like, all right, you run along now. But that is just a horrible thing to think about.
So now that you have a little bit of a background of Ted Bundy, another thing about him was people saw him as a great charismatic guy.
Yeah.
And that brought more women to him, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
They did interviews that back in the 70s, and they showed those interviews and kind of recreated them in the film. That the women were like, I don't know what's wrong, but I just love him.
Yeah, one saying, he's so dreamy.
Yes,
I'm just like,
I wrote that down, and here's a quote. It's like great stuff.
This is what these people did on their day. They're just like, hey, we don't have Facebook and Twitter. Let's just go on down to the courthouse and let's look for the hot convicts.
Now, this new Netflix film is directed by Joe Billinger, I believe.
Yes.
And Joe got tapes from somebody else that came up to him. And these tapes were basically all about Ted Bundy, even this behind-the-scenes stuff. So everything you see in this film was basically a tape that they went and recreated with this cast. And I thought that was the coolest part because you're actually seeing everything that happened. And they show it in the credits as well.
Yeah, right at the end in the credits, when they're showing the actual footage of this is like wow, that's crazy looking.
They did it.
And they did a good job.
And in our first episode, we talked about Zac Efron being able to suspend the disbelief for a while. You know, he's done High School Musical, Neighbors, a bunch of variety. He's been acting forever, but you kind of get him in that Ted Bundy role.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was really worried about going into this. I'm just like, am I going to be able to believe that he's actually Ted Bundy and not the kid from High School Musical? And I got to say, I bought it.
Is it T as in Troy or T as in Ted Bundy?
I absolutely believed it. There wasn't a second where I'm just like, wait, isn't this the guy from that one thing? No, the entire time, even up to the start, right when they meet in the prison, the meeting area. No, I believed it the whole time. This guy is Ted Bundy.
Now, Ted Bundy is the main character in this film. Normally, you root for the main character.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself rooting for him along the way?
Yeah, here's where it's going to get a little weird. 100%. I feel like this goes without saying, but we're going to be talking spoilers here.
Yes, there is a spoilers warning.
for as much as you can spoil a biopic, I feel like if somebody tells me the Titanic sinks at the end, I won't be too offended.
True, very true.
We all know how this one's going to end. But the entire time, when he's in prison, he's looking at the little girl's picture of the shark.
It was a big shark about to eat a smaller fish.
Yes. Solid picture. But he's looking at it, and the entire time, this is in like the first half of the movie, where you're just like, I've never seen this guy do anything wrong. He seems like such a nice guy. And there is a point where I'm just like, I'm kind of rooting for him to escape as he's like cutting the roof off or whatever. Like, there was a point when he even jumps out of the window. I was actually rooting for this guy. And halfway through, I was just like, wait a second. This is Ted Bundy.
Yeah, wait. I know how this ends. I know it's not going to end good. So, but he's so smart is the big thing. He was a law student in college, and he's just so punctual, well-spoken, and you're like, wow, he's going to pull off something really cool. And then you're like, wait, he's getting out of all these murders.
Right.
Not good. No. And I was reading the interviews that the director did, and he was talking about how he wanted that. He wanted you to feel kind of like the girlfriend in a way, where you see him as this cool, great guy, and in the end, you find out everything bad.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that helped that the most was they didn't show him doing anything, basically in the first 3/4 of the movie.
You didn't see a thing. Every now and then you'd hear like TV footage or radio footage.
I believe that was the old footage too.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah. And it was just somebody saying, oh, two more missing women in the whatever area, and you would just know that there's this thing going on in the background, but they would never show anything.
So do you think this film works better for people who don't know much about Ted Bundy, or people who lived through it in the 70s? What do you think?
One of my main gripes with it was exactly what you were saying. It was, I found myself actually rooting for him. But I knew who Ted Bundy was. He's a serial killer. He's a horrible person, as the title suggests. And I feel like if you don't know who this person is, it could actually come as a shock, the ending to you, where he writes hacksaw up against the glass of the meeting area in the prison. Like, if you don't know who this person is, this would just be shocking. You're just like, wait, what? I feel like it would be best if you knew something about Ted Bundy. Just anything to not root for him. As crazy as that sounds, you're right. I genuinely found myself just like, this guy's so nice. What's wrong with him? I don't see anything wrong with him. Liz Kendall, she has her friend over all the time, and she's just like, hey, by the way, this guy's name is on all of these FBI wanted lists. And she's just like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I found myself, I was just like, yeah, these two will make it. Don't you worry. And I'm just like, no, wait, this is Ted Bundy again. This is horrible.
Well, I just want to correct myself earlier. Joe Berlinger is the director, and he's just been great. He had conversation with a murder, did the document and stuff like that. So we're going to run you through the film just a little bit, talk about some key points there. And a big thing I thought was it begins with him coming out, getting uncuffed, and they're at the glass. She's waiting for him to pick up the phone, and they talk, and it parallel edits to them meeting for the first time in the bar.
Absolutely loved the way that was edited.
It was great. You're like, oh, something's gonna happen here. And she is just broke up with her loser boyfriend, as they said, and she's like, I'll never meet anybody else. And her friend says, hey, that guy's been checking you out. What do you mean you're not gonna meet anybody else? Ted Bundy, Zac Efron, played it smooth, and he ends up getting to take her home. The big problem I thought was he drove her home in a yellow bug.
Oh, okay.
You can't date a guy in a yellow bug.
The entire time of him being so likable, one of the main things was his car. The guy's driving a 68 Volkswagen Beetle in like a creamish yellow. The guy's driving Bumblebee.
Yeah,
The entire
basically.
time, I'm just like, this guy has done nothing wrong in his life. Now he's driving an insane car. But he just seems so nice, and the car seems so nice.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just the whole thing. And it moves into, because she has a kid. He's big into the family, and old footage, the tapes that were given to the director showed, home videos that they recreated in here and had that old time 70s, 80s kind of camera feel.
Yeah.
So you can kind of tell they're recreating something really cool here. And it goes downhill from there.
when you see the pictures at the end of the actual couple, it's just like, it really, solidifies that, hey, by the way, this is real. This really happened. And it's just shocking. It's crazy to think about that, the people who actually lived through this, the people who knew this guy, I would imagine this would be insanely shocking to just see this all unfold really slowly, mind you, several years. Wow. It's really scary to see him with the family at like a birthday party too. It's just like, that's not right.
And the weird part was his girlfriend, he didn't, other than one scene where they showed that he was kind of fighting his cravings to, either put his hands on her neck or something like that. It wasn't going to be her ever. And he kind of alluded to that in one of their conversations later at the jail, saying, anybody else but you.
Yeah. And he said, have I ever raised my voice? Have I ever gotten angry with you or something like that? And, well, he never did. I feel like when you think about it, I'm just like, oh yeah, how would she know? How would she know that he's a horrible person? But, the way the perspective of the movie is, they sure did a good job of making it look just like, this guy seems fine. I don't see what everybody else is talking about. They put you into that perspective of, well, he's so dreamy.
He kind of was. And picking Zac Efron for it.
Yeah. You can't go wrong there.
That was good. Well, he went to jail the first time. He got pulled over. Yeah. And they saw that he had a box of things he couldn't explain too well. It was with rope, trash bags. There was a couple other things, crowbar.
Yeah.
And maybe one other item, but it was pretty clear what he was using those for.
Yeah.
But the cop pulled him in. And that was to Utah prison, March 1st, 1976. And he was getting pushed around a lot. And then if you listen to our first episode, I alluded to his 8-pack, Zac Efron, jacked. Ted Bundy might not have been, but you get to see it in one little quick scene there. Then he gets moved to Colorado, 1977, after a cop comes up to him and kind of gets him to say that he, in fact, was not in Colorado, even though he had evidence on him.
Yeah.
Not good there. And this kind of led to a downhill little slope here. Liz started losing hope in him, and he read a book that talked about and had a theme of, that's my hope for us, and that we never lose hope. And he kept repeating that throughout the film.
Yeah. Even gave her that book in that one scene just to really drive home that, you see that later in the film with another character that he befriends and ultimately kind of like lures in, and you see it slowly, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
So because he ran into a friend, and we'll get into her character in a little bit, but is that kind of how he gets with every other girl, do you think? They had to show it somehow?
I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy in this thing. Obviously, I mean, it's based off a true story. It's a biopic. I'm not 100% sure if every little detail was correct. And, I'm not sure I want to look that up. But I would imagine that with, anybody who meets him, they always just said how friendly he was. So when you see him meeting another character and you see the same, I would imagine that's how he was with a lot of people. Very likable person.
And always getting checked out by girls. And every scene he was in, there was always girls kind of looking at him, and he kind of looked at them.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest evidence, if you watch the documentary or just even this film or whatever, the biggest evidence that incriminated him was his bite marks on the back of a girl.
Yes.
He had the worst teeth imaginable.
Dude needs an orthodontist.
Yes.
He was so messed up, and to think that was, they had a lot of evidence against him, but the nail in the coffin for him was just how messed up his teeth were.
Like,
what?
And they made Zac Efron's teeth look just like that. It was really gross.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. I don't know. You see all these things with de-aging a person. With Samuel L. Jackson, like, he looks like he's 30. It's incredible. I don't know how they messed up Zac Efron's teeth. I hope they didn't actually do that.
We got to move a few things around here. At some point, they talked about there was over 200 fingerprints found, and he was none of them. So that kind of helped in his way. And he kind of covered his tracks a little bit, unless you read into the murders and you're like, I don't know what he did.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, the judge says, we're not looking for credibility of evidence. We're just looking for the fact that there is evidence. And that kind of led to the downfall. You were talking about some things that happened. I was mentioning covering his tracks. And one of the victims was beheaded. Well, multiple of them were.
Yeah.
Where did he keep those heads?
So, just by reading online, apparently, he would save some of those heads as, quote, mementos in his apartment.
See, that's not covering your track.
No. Now, we never actually see, I don't believe we ever see his apartment in the film.
No, they just show him moving in with her right away.
Yes.
With Liz.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't show that. But something tells me the second they found that, at this point, why is there even a trial?
No idea. No idea.
They never mention that in the movie of him keeping heads of people. They allude to the fact that, yeah, he's cut off somebody's head before, but they never show that. And I feel like if they had mentioned that during the courtroom scenes of, hey, by the way, we found about 12 heads in his apartment. Like, I feel like, okay, case closed. If I was the jury, I'm just like, all right, yeah, this guy did this. He did it.
At some point in that film, it had to cover the time that the heads were there. Yeah. So the fact that they didn't bring it up was a little weird.
I feel like not bringing it up just kind of, the jury would hear that at some point. They'd be like, hey, by the way, when they find in his apartment, and the police officer would be like, nothing of importance. I feel like that didn't necessarily help our credibility. It helped us seeing him as, that dreamy, nice looking guy who's well spoken. But I feel like if they gave us more of the picture, we'd really understand. We would learn a lot sooner than the ending of, oh, this guy's horrible.
Do you watch the documentary first, or do you watch this first?
Now, I had seen Conversations with a Killer, and I seen that maybe about a month or two ago, and I'm not so sure that watching that would help. I feel like if you watch that, you'll definitely get a lot of background information, a lot of story that they don't go over in the film, because you can't. There's just so much.
Do you need your interest piqued from this film to then move on for more information?
I would say if you're looking for more information, watching the movie will definitely lead you in that right direction of, hey, if you want to know more about this, sadly, you can look it up, and here's a whole nother documentary. So perhaps I would suggest watching the movie itself first and then going to Conversations with a Killer, because they go deep in that. I don't know. It's like 2 hours an episode, I think. It is long.
How do they have so much on a guy from the 70s?
I don't know. The dude like to talk on his little recorder.
They have his recordings.
Oh, yeah. You hear his voice, and it is...
Does it talk about what he did, or is it, what is it?
When I was watching episode 1, it was literally him giving his backstory, where he grew up, what kind of family he had. Pretty sure it even talks about like a camp he went to. I'm just like, I don't care. But
get to the good stuff.
Just get to the part where they caught him. So they go in a lot of it, and yeah, like I said, there's a lot there. So I would definitely watch the movie first. What do you think?
I like the fact of watching the movie first instead of watching a long documentary. As you said, it's just multiple parts.
Yeah.
So getting into that with a lot of dry information, if you want to count it as that.
Yeah.
I feel like watching the 2-hour film, that'll pique your interest. You're like, oh, he wasn't a bad guy. Now, oh, wait, he is a bad guy.
Yeah.
I want to find out more of what he did. I think that's the way to go.
I don't want to say it might turn somebody away from seeing it, but that documentary, yeah, it's a slow burn. So, yeah, I feel like if you watch that first, there's the chance it might turn some people off from wanting to see this.
And you get a picture in your head seeing the movie. You know what I mean? You have an idea of what it was like.
Yes.
His style, his talking, the way he moved, what he wore. Very interesting outfits.
Yeah, he dressed interesting, let's just say the least.
Should have threw him in jail from that alone.
The bow tie.
Well, we're halfway through the film, and at this point, he's been in jail a couple of times, and he's beaten up a cop and run away, and Liz is losing faith in him.
Yeah.
We get to the 55-minute mark, so halfway, and Liz has a boyfriend.
Slowly starting to move on, but obviously not all the way. Obviously still drinking a lot to cope through this whole thing, still watching all of this unfold, even still picking up the phone, which, don't do that.
He called obsessive amounts.
All the time.
Kind of aggravating.
And you can't block a number then.
No, she just had to pick it up. She was at work getting these calls, and everybody knew she was the girlfriend of Ted Bundy.
Yeah, it didn't help that she had the picture of him with the family on her desk,
which eventually she does hide. Here, we also see that the friend that they ran into earlier in the film, towards the beginning, about 20-minute mark, I believe it's Carol.
Yeah.
And
Carol Ann, I believe.
Carol comes in. She goes out. I believe they're in Florida at the time. And she says she really wants to help him. She's all in. And you can kind of tell in their first encounter that they've had a past.
Yeah, when they're at the dog shelter and they meet, he just introduces her as, we worked together. I feel like there's definitely something more there.
She kind of paused a little bit, and she didn't like the fact that he was with his girlfriend, and he was reluctant to introduce her as his fiancée, girlfriend, regardless of what it was at the time. And at this point, you see a lot of flipping and a lot of quick editing, just looking at the conversation between the two. The camera kind of circled them endlessly, and they would do it back and forth. Of her saying she'll get his story out there because he is under gag rule, so he can't, go out to the public with anything.
Right. That scene of just that endless spiral, you almost kind of get the sense of this is how people fall into this. He doesn't tell you exactly what to do. He lets the other people, the people that he lures in, to bring these things up and to, I would never ask you to do something like that. It's just like, yeah, but you were kind of leading there. Like that spiraling shot is just kind of like a metaphor for their characters of just getting caught into his trap.
Oh, the whirlwind. I like that. Now, at this point, we're at about an hour in to the film. Are you still rooting for him or what?
I clocked it. At 51 minutes, we see him do his first actual really bad thing. Now we see him escape prison, I believe, twice before then. But then you're still on his side. He hasn't done anything bad. This guy's clean cut.
Plenty of movies about escaping prison.
Exactly. Escape from Alcatraz, you're rooting for the bad guy.
Exactly.
But at 51 minutes is when he officially assaults the officer, punches him in the stomach, and runs.
That's after he gets pulled over again.
Yes.
This time he looks nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike the first time.
He's spooked. And at 51 minutes, then it starts of you seeing, okay, you've actually done something bad now. And, an hour in, you're getting a little bit more. It's not until the end you're officially done with him of, okay, this guy's horrible. So I feel like an hour in, especially during the trial, you're still with him a little bit. The way he ropes around that jury, you're still with him just a little bit. What about you? What'd you think?
I think just around this point, you needed to see him do a bad thing. They kind of needed to add it together.
Yes.
To kind of spiral down.
Yes.
And punching the cop and him going on the run and, hiding in the mountains at a certain point?
Yeah.
Because they were in Colorado.
Yeah, in Colorado.
It needed to happen. Now, you see a new prosecutor come in Florida, the Sunshine State.
Yes.
And it's Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang.
From Big Bang.
And he played it great.
Jim Parsons. And I'm not going to lie, at first when I saw him, I'm just like, oh, this is Sheldon. I'm just waiting for him to say bazinga. That went away in about 5 seconds.
No, he plays a serious role.
Yeah, he did good.
He's really good.
He did really good.
He was the second biggest actor, I think, in there, depending on how you want to level it. I think there was the main three.
Yeah.
And the third one comes as John Malkovich. He played the main judge, and if you see the tapes in the end of the film, you'll see he he said the exact same stuff that the judge said.
Don't shake your finger at me, young man.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was just so good.
Yeah, they did it. They did that really
I can't believe that actually happened.
After watching it, you're just like, okay, I'm sure this is a little dramatized, because it's a movie. They got to do that.
That's exactly what I thought throughout the film. I don't think it was.
But then the parts that they showed, I'm just like, oh, okay, that was exactly scripted from these tapes. Fantastic job on their parts.
So he escapes jail, and you see him partying with two college girls. Maybe 10 seconds later, they start playing the old recordings of, two college girls from the sorority house got killed, and a bunch of others got beat up. And you're like, wow, that's terrible. Another bad thing added to his list if you're watching the film.
But you never see him do any of this.
No, he was just partying and dancing with them.
You see him partying in Florida, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going for my law degree. And you see them dancing and just having a good time. You never think anything of it.
And at that point, his face has been in the paper for so long and in the news. Why would those girls still be with him?
I don't know. Not too many people read the paper in Florida, I guess.
Apparently not. And around that time, you see people, they interviewed the girls, and the girls said, quote, doesn't seem like type to kill someone.
Yeah.
And another quote being, he's dreamy, as you mentioned.
Yep. Everybody's always throwing in that dreamy quote.
3/4 through the film, just about. They have the whole trial, and you hear these gruesome details from Jim Parsons, his character in there, talking about the bite marks, just how he beat the women and what he used to beat them.
Log.
Yeah, very, very weird.
And this is just 2 of the murders, mind you.
Yeah, just a few of them at this point.
For somebody who's confessed to 30, probably did more, the whole thing focuses on just these 2. And maybe that's a good thing, that it really just all the details on these, because each one of those people has just a horrible, gruesome story to tell, sadly.
And they showed the pictures of the girls, which that kind of, you're like, wow,
that really drives
that adds
it
more
home,
to
I
it.
feel like, yeah.
This whole trial really drives it home. Later, you see after this, Ted Bundy, he has a dispute with his lawyer. He doesn't think he's competent enough and doesn't want to put in the work. So you see him take control. He's very smart, and you kind of root for him again a little bit because he's his own lawyer.
He becomes his own legal counsel, and he's just, he's the underdog in this thing. And as of right now, again, you haven't seen him do anything. You're hearing these gruesome details, but you're just like, nah, this ain't the guy. This ain't the guy. So that whole just underdog story of, maybe he can do this. Maybe you know what? Maybe he can convince these people that he's not the guy. That was good. That was good.
And I still think he could have. And at a certain point, his stuff was very good. And if it would have been any other person, they would have listened to him and did his request. But John Malkovich, the judge, was like, you don't have this kind of power here. We're not going to do that for you.
Yeah, he wasn't having any of it. He did not care one bit anything Ted had to say, which in retrospect is probably a good idea.
Yeah, Ted Bundy was calling for a whole retrial. The teeth marks were being thrown around in the papers and stuff, and he wanted that to be recounted.
Yeah, he wanted brand new evidence to be brought forth. The things, obviously, that would point to him not being the murderer in some of these cases, just to try and clear his name a little bit more.
After this scene, you see him call Liz one final time. And who answers?
It's her new boyfriend.
Oh, yes, right. How's that conversation go?
At first, Ted's just like, who is this? And he's the guy there. He's just like, yeah, you can't call here anymore. I don't ever believe he actually gives him his name, because I wouldn't.
No, not to Ted Bundy.
And you just, Ted says, could you give her a message for me? And could you tell her that I love her?
And he hangs up.
And he hangs up immediately. And he obviously doesn't give that message until later when Liz asks, hey, by the way, was Ted calling the other day? And she's still reaching for the phone. And I feel like it was nice of her to have a friend that was just looking out for her.
Another friend, yes.
Yeah, another.
This guy was being more assertive with it than her girlfriend in the beginning.
Yes.
So right after this phone call, you see him kind of lose it a little bit. He's smacking the phone against the receiver.
Yeah.
And it cuts to the next scene where you see a cop holding money, and they're alone in the conference room, and Ted Bundy and Carol are getting it on.
Yeah.
Against a vending machine.
Right up against the Coke machine.
So that was good.
After that, you're just like, I don't think he meant that phone call.
No, I don't think he loved her.
I don't think he did, no.
So while they're getting intimate, I mean, this is an important detail to bring up. Yeah. They kind of go back and forth. She's asking him, does he still love Liz? He said, no, she abandoned me. I love you. And then he created their whole life story together.
Exact same story that he told Liz.
Dog, car.
A house. What does he call it? A house in the sound. And a dog. And
I'm allergic to dogs.
Yeah,
Thanks, Carol.
That's what Carol Ann says. But this reminded me of the Joker in a sense in Batman.
How so?
I mean, he gives the same story every single time. Maybe changes it a little bit, but he's always just luring people into his traps. Like in the Killing Joke Joker, he just keeps telling the same story to everybody else. And I got a sense of that in this, where it's just like, you don't care who this person is, you don't care for them one bit, but you'll give them what they want to hear.
Why does he need a rock in his life? With every other girl, he does, his terrible thing too. Why does he need that one girl to be his rock that he's actually in love with, or as actually in love with as much as an extent you want to put that?
And however many quotes you want to put that in.
Exactly.
I don't know. I would say that I think he saw certain people as a way of humanizing him. If he could get people, they were respected people, Up until then, Carol Ann and Liz, they were fine people. They never did anything wrong or anything like that. They never committed any sort of horrendous crime or anything like that. If you could get people like that to vouch for you, to be like, hey, this guy's a stand-up guy and everything like that, then I feel like that would help his case, sort of. I feel like he saw these people as a way of clearing his name, in a sense. I don't believe he actually cared for them.
No, not at all.
I don't think so.
All right. We're just about close to wrapping up the film-wise, and then we'll get into more details, the director's, what he wanted to, and how Zac Efron got the role. So right after that, he finds out that she ends up getting pregnant, but this is after he's found guilty in jail. John Malkovich, as the judge, is not caring about it anymore, and he says he could have respected him one day and would have enjoyed having him practice his law in his courtroom, but he doesn't deserve any sympathy, and he deserves the cruelest, gruesome death, which we find out comes from the electric chair. One thing was John Malkovich looked him in the eye, and they had a very intense close-up on both their eyes.
Yes, just that slow zoom in. Back and forth.
He called him a total waste of humanity, and the camera keeps pushing in on Ted Bundy's eyes, and he's crying really well.
Yeah, he's doing a good job faking it.
Great way to do that.
Yeah,
and
you can obviously tell he's practiced.
It's getting to him, and he's definitely practiced. Right after this, it cuts to 10 years later. He's already gone to jail. Liz is at work. She has an actual job now, and she receives a letter that was hidden by her then boyfriend after the phone call.
And at the time, I believe we see a ring on her finger.
Yeah, so she is married to that person.
Yeah, she's moved on almost completely, in a sense, I would say.
And this letter basically explained his half of it, not incriminating himself too much, but he is going to be on death row in Florida in 1989. It cuts back to the very beginning of the film where you see them go up to the glass and have that phone call together, and you get the rest of that conversation.
It ends right where it starts. I love that.
And you can tell in the beginning of the film that she was kind of done. She wasn't there just out of love. She was there for answers. She was there because she knew something. In the middle of the film, jumping back just a little bit, a Colorado cop brings her a confidential envelope that she finally opens at the end of this film. And we see her open it up, pull out a picture, and she slaps the picture against the glass. And what was that picture?
She says, it took me 10 years to be able to look at this. And it is a picture, and they show it. I don't know if it's the actual picture, but they show it. It is a picture of a body missing a head. And she says, what happened to her? And at first he's playing it cool. He's just like, I would never do those things. And after a while she says, release me. She's been caught in this game of his. We see all these we don't see them, but we hear about all these deaths happen. But the entire time you're watching one happen in slow motion. This guy ruined her life, and she wants to be done with it. She wants to know the truth. And honestly, it really shocked me. She says, what happened? What happened? Release me. Just tell me the truth. And he puts down the phone, and he starts writing on the glass. And at first I was just like, what is he? He's probably going to write something like, I love you or something like that. It's like, okay, I get it.
The glass got fogged up because they were heated for so long going back and forth.
As he's writing on it, it's now showing him actually murder somebody. It shows him luring some girl to his car, and he hits her with, I don't know if it was like a tire iron or a crowbar, and then you hear a saw in the back, and then you see what he wrote, and he wrote hacksaw. And right then she throws the phone down, and she gets out of there. I'm really shocked that he actually told the truth to her.
In the end, yes. Very chilling moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were done after that.
The look on his face as he's writing that. Wow. When you see her run out, not run out, but you see her go out to her family, her daughter, who's now almost completely grown up now, and her husband, it's just like, I think she's finally done. The whole marriage that we never actually see. But I think now she was done. She can completely move on.
And the film wraps up pretty quickly here. Right after that, there's text over Liz and her family getting in their car. There's text that says, he got executed January 24th, 1989. Confessed over 30 more murders. They believe there to be more.
Yeah.
And then it listed every girl's name that they knew of. And it did it slow. You got to read every person's name. I think that brought them some justice.
I like to hope so. You never see or hear every name mentioned. This one only focuses on just a few names, but I feel like you can't let it go of, hey, by the way, everybody else. That was just chilling just to see. It's just text on a black screen, but whoa.
And the thing that I thought helped the most was finally seeing him kill a person. Because then you're like, oh, I'm done rooting for him.
Yes.
He's terrible. I can't believe, these girls grew up to only be his victims.
That wicked smile on his face as he's, bagging up the body and putting it in his car. I'm glad we actually got to see something. One of them happen. Because if they didn't show that, honestly, him writing Hacksaw, really don't think there would be that much pull there and just be like, well, I didn't see it, so whatever.
Yeah, that was much needed, but I'm glad they held off throughout the entire film because we kind of lived along with everybody else, or most people at that time.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would think.
Them holding off from that, I think that I like how they didn't show anything gory. I'm not into that. Now, this movie is rated R, so if they wanted to, they sure could have. But I feel like it really, you're rooting for this guy up until almost an hour into the movie, and you don't see anything until the very end of him actually hitting somebody. Did that, I don't know, romanticize the character at all for you a little bit? Not showing anything, did that really help you? Were you with him the whole way through, kind of?
I kind of was, and just the fact that it was Zac Efron, I kind of got rid of that a little bit.
Yeah.
But he played the part really well, and the fact that they didn't show anything, I was with him. It romanticized it for sure.
Yeah.
And just his brilliance, I was very interested in being like, he could actually talk himself out of this.
Yeah, he could.
And I know that Ted Bundy was, got killed in the end. Yep. I knew that while watching the film.
Oh, yeah, we knew how it ended.
But while I was watching the film, I kind of let that go. And I was like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, there's
if that makes sense.
Several scenes where, he puts on that smile and you're just like, oh, this guy's going to talk his way out of this one. And I'm sure there's numerous occasions where he actually did do that. And yeah, even in the courtroom, you're just like, he might actually get out of this just fine.
And the fact that he became his own lawyer, I was like, this is kind of cool. You know?
It's that perfect underdog story. You're just like, I'm rooting for him at this point. Thank you. But unfortunately, that, for me, I think that was a bit of a problem with it.
That it was shown as an underdog.
Yeah. We love those stories of, somebody versus everybody. I'm on that guy's side. And I don't know. I feel like, I didn't want to see anything gory, but I feel like not showing anything gory made me root for this guy in a sense. And for a movie about Ted Bundy, I feel like maybe we needed to see something, because I feel like, everybody was saying up until the release of this movie with the trailers, they're just like, okay, you're making him way too dreamy. He's way too nice looking. But people don't understand that was him. That was how he did it. That was how he did all of it. The director really pulled us in there. We were in those people's positions for a long time there. We believed him. I know I did.
And showing the footage, the actual raw footage of Ted Bundy in the credits, they pulled word for word. That was their script.
Somebody asked him, did you commit these crimes? And he's just like, can I say I've never committed a crime? Sure, I stole a comic book when I was 5 or something like that. And you're just like, well, this guy's sociable. He's nice. He's kind of silly. He's cool. They even show the scene of, I believe it's the district attorney, reading off his indictment in front of the press.
You're not going to get me. That's all you got.
Right. Go ahead, read it, because that's all you're going to get. And you see the actual thing of that. And, when you're seeing that scene play out in the movie, you're just like, I don't know about that. That's a little dramatized. But nope, that was one of the scenes where it's just like taken word for word, shot for shot, exact.
So coming in at, I think, about 150, hour 50 mark, we've thrown the dramatized word out there a couple of times. If you had to give a percentage wise, how much do you think it really was? Or do you think it was all just how the footage was that the director Berlinger got?
Taking a guess, I would have to say
it's a Netflix film,
Yeah, it is. Now, it wasn't intended for Netflix.
Not originally?
No. And that was a mistake I made the first episode. I said they had trouble finding a production company. I meant distribution company, and then it ultimately went to Netflix. I think that, in a sense, we can get that vibe of, a lot of this is true. And certainly the people talking in the background, that kind of puts you in the place, and they flash a few dates just to get you in that time period. But I still feel like I'm sure some of it was a little dramatized. So I'm gonna say 90% real, 10% Hollywood.
And Liz, she's still alive, I believe, or no?
Yes, she is, and it says she's been sober now for years.
So she had to be able to tell her side of the story, kind of influenced how they met, things like that. So they had to make up a few things, maybe. So good stuff right there. That's our first run through the film. We're going to take a quick music break, and when we get back, we're going to look at others' reviews, especially from the New York Times, and we're going to look at how Zac Efron got picked for the role. So after we just reviewed the entire film, I know that was a little long, but a 2-hour film, and we cut out a lot, so it's definitely worth watching, I think. Now, to get into why Zac Efron was picked for the role, he was looking for something more serious and much different from what he's already done, and the director even said he took a 99% pay cut to play this film, so you knew he wanted to...
Holy cow.
Yes, so he wanted to play something new and fresh, and I have a quote from his interview that he did. It's a little bit long, but it's very good. So he thought it was a fantastic idea because as a documentarian, it allowed me to take Zac's real life persona and turn it on its head. For a certain generation, Zac can do no wrong. He's beloved by a certain demographic, and that demographic doesn't really know the Bundy story. That being our age, if you followed his first movies as a teenager, High School Musical. He's talking about that to his credit, because sometimes it takes 3 months for an actor to even read the script. He read it immediately. We got on the phone, we clicked, and we said the right things to each other, which made us feel like we could trust each other in this journey. And it was a very low budget film, actually. The fact that Zac was willing to take like a 99% pay cut to do it also suggested to me that he was doing it for all the right reasons. Not easy to play Ted Bundy, but he picked it up perfectly and wanted to run with it.
So much respect for Zac Efron and what he wanted to do. He didn't want this for the money. He wanted just to try something different. And holy cow, good on him. That was fantastic.
Not that many actors that I hear, will do that.
No, you don't hear of too many people. You'll hear of a lot of people. It's just like, oh, what was so-and-so's? How much did they get for that movie or something like that? And you'll hear it's like $50 million. It doesn't pull you out of it, but it's just like, oh, you get paid a lot. I get it. And to hear somebody that just wants to do it, just to do it, just to say, hey, I played Ted Bundy in a movie, and to really challenge themselves as an actor, that's fantastic.
And it did much better than the 2002 film. All right, now we're going to take a look at a couple of reviews. New York Times has started off from Jeanette Katsoulis. She says, the problem with his biopic isn't Zac Efron, or that cumbersome title, but his director, Joe Berlinger. He appears as seduced by Bundy as virtually everyone else in the movie. And the thing is, I think that's what he was going for.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's what he tried to do. He tried to put you in that perspective of this guy can do no wrong. And I could understand from a review perspective of, they really laid it on thick with the, this guy doesn't look bad. And I could understand her reasoning for not caring too much for that, which, I can completely understand that. But I feel like that was his main intention.
It's good to get different parts of the film, and to get that across was so cool that he put us in the dark about something we already know about. And now with this quick Google search, they have a fun thing. It's a top voted tags or hashtags.
I saw that.
So let me read it for you here.
Yeah.
Overhyped, psychological, dark, strong acting, disturbing, unsettling, must watch, intense, boring, and then shocking to cap that off.
I'm not gonna lie, I would agree with a lot of those. I wouldn't really say that the film was boring, but I would agree in that it is a psychological, dark, unsettling film. And if you're looking for that movie to put you in a good place, feel good about yourself, I hate to be the one to tell you this isn't it. This isn't it.
Overhyped?
Towards the end, when it got pushed to Netflix, I believe Netflix got full rights for it for only $9 million.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think it was in Sundance and they picked it up after.
Yes.
But $9 million.
Yeah.
Wow. That's nothing.
after that, you heard a lot of people, I feel like, kind of lose interest in this, kind of lose hope with it a little, but never lose hope. And I feel like towards the end, people were just kind of bringing it down notch after notch. So I wouldn't say that it's overhyped for me, because by the time that we had seen it, it's been out for a few months. I'm not sure exactly when it came out, but we had heard mixed reviews about it, so I didn't have that massive hype level to bring me down. So I would say no, it's not overhyped.
We have another review for you, though.
Yeah, this one comes from Variety's Owen Gleiberman, and he goes on to say, so how is Zac Efron as Bundy? I think he's startlingly good, controlled, magnetic, audacious, committed, and eerily right. I couldn't agree with him more. He definitely Zac played the role to a startlingly degree of, I believe this guy. I believe him. And, that's literally what everybody says of nobody saw him doing these things just based on his appearance alone. And yeah, I agree with that one.
No, I agree with that too. And it's just weird. I don't know why, even for New York Times, they were criticizing that they made it romanticized. Still, I think that's fine. Now, one last topic I want to get into is I mentioned that he had a kid that he fathered from death row. Do you want to look her up right now? I don't think her last name's going to be Bundy.
Probably not. Let's see what we get here.
Because I wonder what kind of life she's had, especially since her mom did live, and her mother Carol was just obsessed with Ted Bundy. So I don't know how you go on after everything, especially 1989.
Okay, so she shockingly kept the name Bundy, which...
Wow. Is there money in it or something?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. So her name is Rose Bundy. She's 37. She uses the pseudonym of Rose. So Rose isn't her actual name, but I'm assuming she's keeping the last name of Bundy. And it just says, where's Rose today? She's out of the public eye.
Well...
That's all it says. And you know what? Good on her. Good on her. Distance yourself as much as you can, Rose. All right. Final thoughts. Would you recommend this to a friend of yours to watch?
You're my friend. I told you to watch it. I think yes, I would. After watching this film, I would definitely, suggest it to somebody. Even if they don't know much about it, it might work out for them. And that's how they play into the film anyways. And it might interest you more. Something about that true crime, and the director even mentioned it. True crime, just... people love it.
Yeah, people love that kind of stuff. It's weird. We have a fascination with serial killers in America, and that's just a horrible thing to say. But
gangsters especially, I don't have a problem with that.
Absolutely.
Al Capone's wonderful. But you know what I mean? Just like we idolize them. We love that true crime aspect. So you could really get into this film, and Zac Efron played it wonderful.
I would say for me, in terms of recommending this to a friend, is for starters, it depends on the age of your friend. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this to my grandma, but I feel like this is going to be a bit of a, you don't need to say this, but just know what you're getting into beforehand. This movie's not going to really put you in a happy place, and just be ready for that. But as long as you're okay with that, yeah, I'd say watch it. It's good.
It's a love story for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it felt this was intended for a theatrical release. Now, how much money would that have actually made? I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, spend $10 to go see that movie. It's like, maybe not. So in terms of who is this meant for, I'm not 100% sure on that. But if you got Netflix, if you're interested in that sort of thing, definitely check it out, I would say.
Now that's going to do it for our first after episode we've done. We did it on Netflix's Ted Bundy. A lot of great information on there. And if you missed our first episode, we talked a lot about that. A lot about John Wick and how there's already being made a part 4 in a TV series. A lot of Avengers have renewed their roles.
Yeah.
And a big thing was Taylor Swift's song with Brandon Urie was fantastic. This next coming episode, what do we have to look forward to? Chris Rock is rebooting Saw, because there's not enough of Saws yet, I don't think. Is 9 enough or no?
No. Yeah, I think you need that one more to just really cap the series.
Made by Chris Rock.
Yeah.
You think more comedy's involved? Just a lot of giggling.
I don't know.
This isn't something to reboot, I don't think.
I don't think so. The horror genre is in, but I don't know if I would go for that.
And then we're going to be taking a look at Billboard Hot 100 and Indiana Jones. So that's going to do it for Before and After episode 2. Join us for episode 3. I'm Vince.
I'm Spence.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.